aroha atu, aroha mai, tātou ia tātou katoa, puie, taiki e. May peace be widespread, may the sea be like greenstone, a pathway for us all this day. Let us show it respect for each other, for one another, bind us all together. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you, Rebecca. Fabulous to have everybody come along and join us, given it's the first day of the school holidays. Really, really appreciate your time. And I would like to just quickly introduce our guests today. So we have got Antnz Burgess and we have Dane Knight here with us. And they are going to be sharing with us a little bit about their understanding of EGL, what it means, you know, for them from their perspective, their experience, and then go on to what might EGL in education look like. And I just want to highlight, we've got two really fabulous and differing perspectives here today. As we spoke at the last EGL in education hui, we talked about how EGL is a social movement, it is a relationship framework, a decision-making framework, you know, something that guides our interactions, engagement with people, systems, processes, all of it. And so it's not about the funding streams necessarily, and it's not necessarily about you know, just funding pathways. So bearing that in mind, it's fabulous to have the two different perspectives where Antnz can access and is accessing some disability supports, whereas Dane hasn't throughout, you know, education, accessed any of those disability supports. So it'll be really interesting to have both those different perspectives and understand what EGL means and how you can have EGL without those, you know, funded disability supports or any specifically funding pathways as such. So can I quickly introduce Tony and Dane. Tony has been part, Tony, Antnz. Antnz can actually share a little bit about her name and how it came to be. It's a very interesting story. Antnz has been involved in the Mid Central Manawhaikaha space over the years and is also on the regional leadership group. And Dane actually is based in Tauranga and is part of an emerging group that is looking at EGL in the community and what that might look like and how that might move ahead and progress. So on to you, Antnz, if you want to quickly just do a little introduction, share a little bit about yourself, your name in particular, and also a little bit about your involvement in the EGL space. And then if we can move on to Dane, that will be fabulous. Now we do have apologies from Shane McEnroe, who was supposed to be here today as a speaker, but cannot make it. So handing over to you, Antnz.
Kia ora koutou, ngā titu whare toa ngā ati haonui a Paparangi te iwi, ko Papioe a te kaianga, ko Mid Central Leadership Group Enabling Good Lives, Royal Commission Historic Abuse and Care Disability Reference Group, Te Aotearoa Disability Reference Group Te Roku, where am I up to? Ko Takata Pui, Tangata Whaikaha Wahine Māori, or Tony Burgess Toku Ingoa, Nai Nei Rāko Ansaho. So kia ora people, my name is Tony Burgess, but everybody calls me Antnz. The reason for that is I have a background in outdoor education and recreation. We were doing some climbing and somebody said, hey, you're really little and you look like an ant. And here we are 20 something years later, and I'm known as Antnz. I first got involved in Enabling Good Lives in 2017, where I'd seen a flyer come across Facebook going, hey, we're coming to town to talk about this new disability system transformation. And me being the cynical person that I am, thought, oh, yep, we'll just see what this next round of bullshit government consultation that ticks the box is going to be like. And I actually found 6 disabled people in their whānau, some of who are still on our reference groups and leadership groups now, saying, hey, look, the government actually wants to talk to us for a change. And oh, by the way, we're running a prototype in Mid Central in 2018 on. So that was initially my start. Background wise, grew up out in Ashurst, just out of Palmerston North, attended Palmerston North Girls High. And it was 2 years later that I damaged my back. And it wasn't until a couple of years ago that I got an official diagnosis. So injured in 98, kicked off ACC in 2000 because it was psychosomatic. So had been denied supports for 20 odd years, but still was one of New Zealand's first disabled outdoor recreation qualifications at a tertiary level. So you definitely don't need the funding to be able to live the best life you can. And it's all about a mindset and a way of thinking about things, which a whole heap of people are doing anyway. We're just putting some nice words around it, really. So that's me in a nutshell, and I'll hand over to Dane. Kia ora.
Yeah, cheers for that, Ants. Thanks everyone for coming. Nice to see you all. My name's Dane. I'm 30 years old. I've got cerebral palsy, and as Freon said, I'm a member of the emerging EGL community here in Tauranga. It was actually Jane, who is attending the meeting also, that got me involved, and I've come along here today to sort of share my perspective about EGL from a more of a non-funded sort of perspective, because growing up, while I did have some assistance with certain things throughout my education, I didn't have any regular funding or supports in place with any regularity. So I think that brings quite a unique perspective to this conversation. And I'm looking forward to sharing some of my thoughts with you all.
Thank you, Dane. Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. Now, I'm just wondering if we can get a bit of an understanding, Dane, in terms of, you know, given that you've come into the EGL conversation at this stage, you know, but we've all said to you, Jane, myself, we've said, you know, you've been living EGL anyways. What do you think, now that you understand and know EGL, what and where do you think, you know, you can draw those parallels between some of the really fabulous inclusive experiences you've had in the education system over the years, and how they kind of align with EGL, you know, approach and some of the EGL principles? Are you able to sort of just expand a little bit on that and sort of share your thoughts on it?
I think, as Ants did mention, EGL is also a bit of a mindset, and I think that that's a really key point moving forward, even if you are new to the EGL principles, because, for example, one of the principles is beginning early. So what better time to start that than when you or your disabled child are in school? And whether that be in mainstream education or not, I think it's really important that the earlier these principles are adopted, the better for disabled people and their families, because it can provide clarity on what EGL actually is and what assistance is out there, because I feel like a lot of people don't actually know what help may be available to them. And it can also help people that don't have a disability have a better understanding of what certain disabilities are and how people are affected by that, because every disability is different, and everyone who is affected by a disability is affected in different ways. And so I feel like beginning early and having some sort of education around disability can help remove some of the stigma that is associated with disability. So I think that's a really important point to make.
Fabulous. Thank you, Dane. And I really, really love the point that you've made over here about how it's not just about the disabled child, their family sort of adopting a EGL approach. It's also about the community, and it's about the community's understanding of what that means, and how they can adopt that EGL approach as well.
And if we think about community, Freya, that's the whole purpose for the mainstream first principle. It's not about disabled people at all. It's about the rest of society providing universal access for places, spaces, information, and community. So it's not about disabled people as such. It's about the rest of community getting off their backsides and actually listening to disabled people and allowing us to access community like everybody else.
Thanks, Tony. The other thing I just want to draw attention to over here is last conversation we actually had Jade speak to the group, and it was really lovely. And he mentioned that EGL is that relationship framework. It's about how we interact, how we engage with each other in the community, and that is so important to sort of remember, because EGL is something you can use in your day-to-day interactions, in your day-to-day decision making with everybody, whether it's professionals and services and systems, or whether it's the wider community around you, your family members even, really understanding how you can engage with disabled people and their whānau in a mana enhancing manner, in a really genuinely authentic sort of inclusive manner, in a manner where they have their choice and control, front and center, and they are able to self-determine their priorities and the direction of their life and what makes their good life, so really, really important to keep that.
I'm sure you just touched on like 6 of the 8 principles all within 2 sentences.
All right, look, one of the questions that we actually did have specifically was, how can EGL improve inclusive education and educational experiences for our children and whānau? Let's because often the conversation always comes back to funding. And so what I want to do is, without any funding, what do you think, Tony? How can EGL be applied in the education space? Now, I just want to preface it with, yes, EGL is meant to be rolled out as such nationally, and EGL is supposed to be across the sectors, across government, and across the community. The reality is, it's not quite there yet, and it's not quite happening. And this is why we're having these conversations. And we have people who are interested in this korero coming along, to see what we can do. So I think I just want to preface this with, this is for you to start thinking about what can you do to get EGL into the education space. What can we as individuals do? What can we do through different organizations and agencies we are engaged with? Kara, you've got a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, I do. I'd just like to know that funding that we are talking about, where is that funding coming from with the government, with this EGL rollout? Where is it going to happen? What's going to happen if we need to know the ones that live independently, living by themselves in their own home, with disabled people. Where's the funding that is coming with us? Where's that coming from? What government is going to reach out for EGL?
Yeah. So Kara, the way the funding is, so you have your disability support funding, which is for individuals with disabilities who need that support, or for students. So that comes either through Ministry of Health or Ministry of Education, depending on sort of educational needs or health and sort of, daily living needs. But I think the component that you're talking about is to get the EGL conversations happening in the community, right? And that funding is hopefully coming soon. Whaikaha should be announcing soon about some funding available, which community groups can apply for to start having the conversations about EGL, and it is about building capability and capacity for our disabled people and whānau in the community. And that's something that is in the pipeline. So keep your ears open. In the next few months, we should hopefully be hearing about it. But meanwhile, it is, you know, groups like us, individuals like us, having these conversations and really starting to share thoughts and ideas so we can start influencing the change as well. Yeah. Hope that answers your question, Cara.
Hello.
That answers your question?
Yes, it does. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, Cara. Thank you. And it's lovely to have you here. And I'm hoping that one of the other sessions in the future, we can have you as a speaker as well.
Oh,
Yes,
thank
it would be
you.
lovely.
I'll be
It would be lovely.
privileged on all of that.
Just to let you guys know, Cara is also part of the emerging EGL community voices group that is coming up in Tauranga. So yeah.
I feel like I'm really part of EGL. I can't get myself out, so I love it too much. Thanks, Ant, for that.
Kia ora. Hey, just to give people some kind of hope, I guess, or just some yay kind of things from me in the last couple of weeks. I'm actually doing more kind of mainstream outdoor education work. So 4 weeks ago, I was out with 2 weeks ago, I was out with a group of 28, large group of young girls, all Palmerston North Girls High School girls doing their Bronze Duke of Edinburgh journey training. And one of those young women had cystic fibrosis. So for me, for that to come through a mainstream school was absolutely fantastic. And a bit of a chuckle, I've been attending a rehabilitation clinic for physical rehab for the last couple of years. And I've been working out alongside Brian and Barb's for ages and ages. And I was talking to Brian a bit about some of the work I've been up to. And he came out with, well, you know what? I mainstreamed before mainstreaming was a thing. They wanted me to send my boy off to a special institute, and I told them to bugger off. He went to Ashurst School. And I went, holy moly, you're kidding me. And I actually attended school with their son, Kadrian, who is now one of the forefront researchers on cerebral palsy, mental health and exercise. So there's a couple of cool stories around education for you. For me, I think the key thing that a lot of education people need to focus on is not so much the system, but really honing in on that person-centered, self-directed approach. So many of we have a group here in Mid Central called the Yays. That's their name. They chose it themselves. They got sick of saying young adult and youth. And we hear lots of stories coming through about our younger people being dissuaded from certain subjects at high school or being channeled into certain subjects because that's where other people think their strengths lie. Whereas I think if we're being mana enhancing and person directed and centered about those sorts of things, we're actually going to follow where that child leads us in the subjects that they like, in the ways that they communicate, in the people that they enjoy being around. Yeah, sure, some people have behavioral challenges, but that's just communication difference. And if we can begin early in recognizing those as well, we're far better off for the school, that young person, and the society as a whole. I've done a lot of work in youth work, and in the 2010s, a research paper came out around the fact that for young people to develop well, they need 7 trusted adults in their lives. And I think about some of our disabled young people, and those 7 people are mum and dad and some support workers. That doesn't put a lot of care and community and universal access as opportunities for that young person. The other thing that we hear a lot from our young people at our Yays is, and Brian, I will connect you with them because they'd be great, is having different learning styles acknowledged, because our system is so set up for reader writers. And even somebody like me who's quite kinesthetic and quite academic at times, has problems in the kind of mainstream systems. That and communication, using different communication methods, whether it's flashcards, augmented alternative education, augmented communication devices, such as tablets, all those sorts of things. Sign language needs to be more available. So a lot of it is around communicating very clearly with a young person and their whānau. And I think that sometimes educators forget that actually whānau see a whole lot more at the end of the day when our young ones come home stressed because their needs haven't been met at school, and they get home and immediately have a meltdown because that's the place they feel safest to do that. So I guess that's my 2 cents worth, Brian.
Thank you so much. Antz?
Yeah, I just want to add in there, just expand on one of those points that that Ant's made. Sorry about that, Freon. I think the importance of beginning early, so while you are at school, is really important for the relationship building that people with disabilities can have, because it's hard for anyone to make friends at school and even in life in general, regardless of whether people have got a disability or not. And I know from my own experience in a mainstream school, I know that my friends, they made every effort to include me in whatever it is that that we were doing, whether that be schoolwork or an extracurricular activity or just hanging out on the weekends. And I think the importance of that, feeling like you're being included and being able to experience things that you might not ordinarily do outside of, getting out of your comfort zone is really, I would say, imperative to living a good life, because, you get to do things that, your parents might be like, oh no, little Timmy can't do this because he's never done that before, or little Timmy can't do this because it makes him upset. But if you actually give it a go, you might find that they enjoy doing those things, and it can provide an opportunity later on in life that it may become a career, or you might get other opportunities from that because you tried something new, from building those relationships at an early age.
That also leads into kind of what a lot of our young people are saying is we need more opportunities to taste life and do life tasting, because so often we're just kind of sheltered away from places that we don't get those opportunities either.
Thank you. Rebecca, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I wanted to pick up on what Antz has mentioned. I just want to say thank you for mentioning communication. In particular, I'm going to struggle with it as well. Augmentative communication, because that's something my daughter uses, a talker. And for me, I worry about the families that aren't in EGL areas, who have no background knowledge, who are yet to buy into the mindset. And I think a massive draw card would be to have control around access to assistive technology, which is life-changing, like a talker, or all those things that come under assistive technology. And because at the moment it's sort of funded like a charity, and you have to wait, and you have to, like, you're not in control of how it's rolled out, who's involved, who's trained around you. So to have that would be a massive buy-in for families. And not a big fan of the mana enhancing phrasing, but mana uplifting, like around like manaakitanga, and I think acknowledging a person's choice of communication style is the greatest way that we can uplift a person's mana. who has been previously, just silent or ignored. So yeah, I'm really happy you mentioned that. So yeah, thanks Antz.
Thanks, Rebecca. And I think that choice and control is so important. I just want to share a little experience we had early on. This was, when my kids were really young and had just sort of started primary school in the mainstream space. So my oldest son is profoundly deaf, as well as autistic. And for him, we were really keen to use total communication, use a combination of, visuals as well as New Zealand Sign Language. Now, I remember I kept getting told, oh, well, we can just use Makaton, and Makaton is what we can use with him. And for me, the reason I was so keen on using NZSL was because NZSL came with a community. It came with the culture, the deaf culture, and the connections that we, could have with the deaf community. And it was really, really important. And it was quite a struggle, actually, for a long time for me to sort of say, well, no, we don't want Makaton, we want NZSL. And, educators kept saying, oh, it's the same, until ultimately I said, well, no, this is our language. This is important for our culture. I had to really, really sort of fight to make sure that we could have that choice about the communication mode. And now, my second son uses a whole range of communication modes. So he actually has some words, some signs, as well as uses a AAC device to communicate. So it's so important, but also I think one of the takeaways for me is, one, for families, for educators, professionals to really know and understand that this choice and control is so important. For, like you said, Rebecca, the mana of that child to be heard, to be acknowledged, to be seen, to be, genuinely be able to participate. And secondly, I think the other point is, what and how can you do things in ways that will support the child, even when you don't have funding. There's lots of simple ways in which visuals can be created. There's low tech, and high tech communication modes, and there's low tech that can be started off with without any assistance. So I think it's about being proactive and, how can we as parents encourage educators to get on board with, ensuring more choice and control for our children and allowing that agency for our children. So their voices, their choices, their interests, their passions are, incorporated as part of the learning. Tony.
Kia ora. Just wanting to kind of riff off what you're saying. Our young adults have a really simple way for our crew to talk to each other. They all carry around 4 coloured cards on them. One's green, one's yellow, one's orange, one's red, and some of them even have a black one, which just makes, just get out of my face now. The red one is, I'm freaking out, I need some downtime. Orange is, hey, I'm really not comfortable, but I'm still okay giving this a go. The yellow is, I'm really, really, really uncomfortable, I don't like it, but you're here, I'm going to be good. And the green is just like, I'm sweet as, let's go for it. So it can be something really simple. What I liked about that one is the young group came up with it themselves, talking about traffic lights and the fact that one of our young people's dogs stands in front of her, waiting to cross the road. So it's also taking the time to have those conversations and figuring out actually who else around can support this young person. And the choice and control is really, really important. And the main difference that we've seen down here is that mindset is starting to shift with clinicians. So previously I would have been prescribed one of those good old thermoplastic ankle foot orthotics. Dane, you probably know the things. Yep,
very familiar with those.
With the good old hinge at the ankle.
That's the one.
Yep. Because I have foot drop, I need one. And I, like I said, traditionally been prescribed those. But a friend of mine had said, hey, have you seen these ones that have come out of Canada, which have minimal contact with the foot? They're made for doing silly things like Ironman and marathons and things. So I was actually able to go to my orthoticist and say, hey, in a self-directed manner, can we try this one instead? Because any time I try to say something else previously, it's been, no, we know what we're doing. So for me, that's been a definite mind shift at the orthoticist here anyway.
Awesome. That's fabulous. Dane, can I come back to you with regards to your journey in the education space? What do you believe really allowed you to have that self-determination, choice and control, agency? Where and how do you think you were given those opportunities to, have your say and your agency acknowledged and upheld?
Well, I was really lucky with regard to the school that I went to, was able to provide all students with some pretty awesome opportunities. I'll go back to one example. When I was just starting out in high school, there was a school camp that the whole of our year group went on. And it was out at a place in the South Island called Castle Hill, which is a high country station, probably about 150 kilometres out of Christchurch. And rather than sort of exclude me from that opportunity, my school thought, oh, hang on a second, how can we make sure that Dane can get involved? And they actually paid for a teacher aide who was Jane, actually, to come down and be on that camp with me, so that I could experience the same things that my friends and my peers were doing. And while I wasn't able to get involved with absolutely everything that was on the itinerary, I still had some pretty awesome experiences. We went snow caving, did some rock climbing, and we camped outside in some pretty cold temperatures. So they were some pretty awesome experiences that I got to have throughout that. But one of the other things that did help me was getting kind of a guy that ended up being a mentor for me when I was kind of about 15. And he came in, he had cerebral palsy as well. So getting him coming in and seeing what he was doing with his life, he was obviously older than me. Getting him come in and sort of share his experiences and what he'd been through and sort of what he was doing with his life, sort of made me realize that, there are certain things that I can do that maybe I thought I wasn't able to before. So I think that's really a big thing, which enabled me to go, hang on a second, I want to give this a go, or I want to be able to do this, or how can I get involved in this, or whatever it may be. I'm not talking about just a physical aspect of things. It might be, I want to learn how to draw or whatever. It can be whatever. It doesn't have to have a physical aspect to it or anything like that. But just feeling like you have a voice is really important. And I think him coming in there was a real key point, sort of a turning point for me, and allowed me to have that shift in mindset that was kind of like, right, how am I going to make my own life better, particularly when I leave school,
Yes, absolutely.
So
Thank
can
you.
I just say something about that camp?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
apart
Jane.
from being treated like a princess and flying down to Christchurch and sleeping in the snow and having these amazing experiences, as a teacher aide, I'd never read more books. I had my own room and Dane didn't actually need me, but it was like the school needed me, Dane?
Yeah.
When I got down there, I was just on holiday. I had the best holiday. So it was just giving the school the confidence.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It was pretty amazing. It was pretty cool. Yeah. So it's educating again, isn't it?
Yeah. I think that's a lot of what it comes back to is spreading that awareness and making, because I feel like a lot of people with disabilities, they sort of get pigeonholed really easily by other people, which I guess in some ways is natural, but being able to have a voice that allows us to, get out of that box that we've been put in by other people is really important. And, having people like Jane there to allow me to go on that camp was an example of that, I believe. So.
Dan, have you been to VIPS?
Yes, I have. Yep.
I have too. And the whole challenge was amazing. I loved it. Now I want to go back and do the 21-week course. So
yeah, getting out there and doing it is a pretty cool feeling.
Yeah, it is.
That's fabulous.
Hey, Kara,
Yes.
I just got signed off on one of my outdoor qualifications again, and I've now been told I'm starting to study for the next one.
Oh, awesome. That's so cool, Anne. Really awesome.
Look, thank you so much for all that sharing. I'm just wondering, there's a lot that we've got in terms of, what possibly can we do? What possibly can we start doing? How can we start sort of shifting things, I guess, at that grassroots level when we're engaging, interacting as parents with, schools and professionals in the education space? Look, I'm just wondering, can we do one thing where we actually break out into little groups, and we can have the conversations about what individually within our capacity, within our day-to-day interactions, can we start doing to start progressing the conversations about EGL in the education space and how we can take it forward. It might be that you're identifying, key people or key agencies that you can engage with, interact with, speak with, to make that happen, whatever it is. If we maybe break out for about 10 minutes and then we come back and we can do a sort of sharing with the full group. Is that all right? Yeah.
It's fine by me, but don't, you know what I'm like with timekeeping, Brianne.
There will be a timer in the breakout room, so don't worry. What I'll do is I will stop recording now. If I can figure out how I am meant to stop recording. Yes, I've figured it out. Thank you. All right, so I'll stop recording. Thank you for all that sharing. I really, really appreciate the time you've given us, Dane and Antnz, and I'm really hoping that we can carry on these conversations and keep bringing in, people so we can share those different perspectives. And Kara, we really look forward to having you at one of the future sessions. And Antnz, once you connect me up with the yays, we can have them come along to some of the sessions as well. So thank you for that. I will stop recording now.
If